and Vance, it's great to have you in Unscripted.
Thank you.
We're shaking it up a little bit today. We're normally on location, having fun with some of our friends, but this is a setting. I wanted to be here at ARC, so the podcast is a little different because I wanted to tell a bit of the story about how this came about, because that's really what you're about.
Yeah.
You're about bringing things from very small to a dream, from an idea. You've done that your whole life. But we're sitting in the studio here at the Billy Hornsby Center for Church Planting.
Wow.
And God gave us this building about 10 years ago to ARC. And then right when COVID hit, the week of, I was sitting out in that parking lot, and all I thought about is we're going to have to distribute. We're going to have to communicate better.
Wow.
And I had the idea we need to turn this side of the building. It was a cafe, a little training area, into a studio. I heard a studio. Called a friend of mine, Toby Ball, who's an old TV guy, and he works with Daystar.
Yeah.
And so I said, I need a studio. That was, I believe, on Saturday. We were up and running, I believe, Monday night.
No way.
Oh, yes way. And it worked. And, just trying to communicate to people, trying to use technology, which we'll talk a lot about.
That's huge.
To help planters, pastors. And then we felt like we needed to do this permanent. So called my good friend David Meyer, Joyce Meyer Ministries, and said, hey, would you help us do this? And I'm starting with you. I'm going to call 10 guys today. And he said, you don't have to call anybody else. We'll fund the whole thing. And that is the heartbeat of Joyce Meyer. Her husband, of course, their family, Hand of Hope, generosity. Giving.
It's incredible.
And that's been really the story of your life.
Yeah, it is.
Bringing things about, generosity, funding the kingdom, funding the ideas that God gives.
That's it.
Give me a little rundown, because I love these conversations where we just roll.
This is fantastic.
Give me a rundown, Vance. Tell me a little bit about that. Your journey.
I love how you open that, because you're talking about what we call in the Silicon Valley 0 to 1.
Oh, wow.
And
I didn't know I did that.
Yeah, you did that inadvertently. We call it 0 to 1. It's the process of taking nothing and creating something.
Wow.
And I love the story of even how the studio came about, because you had a vision and you pitched the vision to potential capital. That capital caught the vision and wanted to be a carrier of that vision, funded it, and then you had a team of executors to actually build it. That is, in essence, what the Silicon Valley has been able to scale and do across many, many different companies now. And specifically, it's called 0 to 1. Yeah. It's called this process of, having a vision. And you went to David Meyer. We go in the Silicon Valley to a road called Sand Hill Road.
Sand Hill.
A famous road that has funded companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, right? Where people like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Larry Page go to this road. It's actually just about 10 minutes away from Stanford, a place of innovation, a center of innovation. Yeah. And they would pitch a vision, similar to how you did with this studio. They would pitch a vision for a future that did not exist yet.
Goodness.
And so
that's so biblical.
It's so biblical.
It's so God.
Isn't it crazy that the language of the Silicon Valley is risk? In the faith world, we call it faith.
So tell us how you came about into that world.
Yeah.
And then how that's translated to the church and to the vision you have for the kingdom.
Yeah.
Which I think is incredible.
We got to rewind a little bit.
Because, I like to rewind.
Because I started college at the University of Washington. Go Huskies, Pac-12. No SEC or anything
Pac-12.
like that. I know, you're laughing at that.
Yeah, we're in Birmingham. That's funny.
But University of Washington, did a 4-year degree there in business and information systems. And so that's kind of where I got my training. Something significant happened, though, is my junior year, I studied abroad in Italy.
Wow.
And exactly. Ciao.
Ciao.
There you go. You're fluent, Pastor Dino.
Like 4 words.
So I studied abroad there. I wasn't walking with the Lord. I was sitting outside of a nightclub about 5 months into the experience, and it was 4 a.m. and I remember it vividly.
Yeah, man, the Italians up late.
They up late,
Up late.
and I was on the side of the street, and I heard the Spirit of God speak to me, not audibly, but in my spirit, saying, "Hey, Vance, what are you doing?"
Wow.
But not in a condemnational way,
Yeah.
in a way of like, I have so much more for you.
Yeah.
And that was the first time in my life for myself, I decided I want to go back to church. I want to understand what this faith journey is all about. And so when I got back to America, to the University of Washington from my exchange program, I looked up a church. The nearest church in that area was a church at the time called City Church, now called Church Home.
Oh, wow. You got in a good one.
Yeah, Pastor Judah Smith. And a Wednesday night service, 9 p.m. That's when college students go to church, apparently. I'm sitting in the auditorium waiting for the service to start, and this cute little Asian girl makes a beeline for me. And she goes, "Hey, you don't know me, but I know you. You're the only Filipino on the Kentwood basketball team and Area 5 DECA president. Okay, bye," and leaves.
Yeah.
And she's my now wife.
Your skills brought the bride in.
Exactly. So she's my now wife of 11 years.
Yeah, fantastic.
And we have 4 kids.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
awesome.
that was a monumental moment after we met at church. So that's a shout out to anybody single out there. Go to church, get a spouse.
That's right.
After we had that, we became friends. I proposed right after we graduated, got married, and I got a job at Google.
Wow.
Right after college.
Well, that had to be a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
A big deal.
Just that opportunity.
First generation immigrant in my family, first to get a college degree.
Wow.
And to have the opportunity, by the grace of God, really. I thought I was going to go into consulting. I thought it was all about money. The Google offer was actually a lesser offer, but it was an offer I was attracted to because of the culture of optimism.
Sure.
The big vision that they have. Can we organize the world's information?
Yeah, gosh.
And so that was so compelling. It wasn't about the pay packet. It wasn't about the package or anything like that. It was about the mission. And so I moved to the Silicon Valley with Kim. She got a job teaching in San Jose, and that's where we started our careers.
So just work in the grind.
Getting it done. And so Google was an incredible experience. I learned a couple of big things. One of the major things I learned is the power of autonomy. So when you set a
unpack
clear,
that's got me thinking.
Yeah, when you set a clear and contagious vision, their vision was really, really clear. We want to take all the world's information and we want to organize it in a way that could be accessible in your fingertips. And that's essentially what they've built, right?
Yeah.
But because they had that clear vision and because they were so intentional on who they recruited top talent. I had like 12 different interviews. It was like over 12 hours.
Wow.
You know, they're really grilling me. But they do that because if they can trust who they've hired, now they can empower you with autonomy.
Wow. Yeah.
With this idea
they're not looking over your shoulder. They're not babysitting you. They're giving you a target.
Exactly.
And they're saying, go get this thing done.
Get this done.
Yeah,
we
wow.
give you a target, we give you a goal, and we're trusting that you're talented enough and you're entrepreneurial enough to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that environment was so engaging. That environment made me feel like an owner. That environment, nobody had to tell me to.
God, those are such good words.
Yeah.
I'm thinking church planting. I'm thinking entrepreneur in the kingdom. You know, when a pastor hands you a college ministry, pastor hands you an outreach, you know, all these different things. It's faith. It's the life principles of leadership.
It is.
It's just, I mean, it's as old as history.
It's as old as history. And what was so cool is they institutionalized this culture. So they would call it 20% time. They named it. They identified it. They made it clear in the culture to all the employees that 80% is going to be your core work.
Sure.
And that is going to be clear on what you need to get done.
Right.
But for 20% of your time, you can choose whatever you want to do. One day out of 5 days. Vision space.
Yeah, wow.
You get to create it.
Yeah.
And what did that do? That created products like Gmail. You know, Gmail.
In the 20%.
Gmail was somebody's 20% project.
Goodness.
The manager, the CEO, the directors, the VPs at the company did not come up with Gmail.
Yeah.
Somebody, an individual contributor on their 20% time, dreamed up this idea, and because they were empowered with ownership.
Empowered. That's a big word. So get me into the church planning journey.
Yeah.
Because I think that's amazing. Because obviously, all those years at Google, learning, leading, developing, and then connecting with a church planner.
Yeah, that's right. So, early on in my Google journey, Kim and I starting our careers, one thing that, because we met at the city church, that we wanted, we disagreed about a lot in our marriage, but one thing we agreed upon, we needed to be in the house of God.
We could be in church. Yeah,
we could be in church. And so we were looking for a church. We went to dozens of churches in the Bay Area for the first few months that we were there. And unfortunately couldn't find one that had a audacious vision that we felt like we can align ourselves to. Sure. Fast forward a few months in, we got a direct message from these two pastors in Australia. Our pastors now, Pastors Adam and Kira Smolka, right? So they DM us on Twitter saying, hey, we heard that y'all are looking for a church.
Wow.
We feel called from God to start a church in the Silicon Valley. They were in Sydney, Australia at the time. Yeah. We would love to meet. And, I'm fresh out of college. I don't know anybody from anybody. And I'm just responding to this tweet saying, sure, let's meet. Are you here? And they said, no, we're not there, but we're planning a trip in the next few weeks and we'd love to meet you then. Yeah. So we coordinated.
You're building that launch team.
Exactly.
You're building that launch team.
Exactly. From across the world.
Yeah, from 0 to 1.
From 0 to 1.
0 to 1.
And so we planned a trip. We coordinate a meeting in the Silicon Valley. We tour them around Stanford. We tour them around Google. We're the first couple they meet. Wow. Physically in the Silicon Valley.
Is so big.
This is the first time they've ever been.
That's a big lesson.
Big lesson.
Big deal. That's a big deal for a planter.
It's huge.
For anybody starting something.
So they're falling in love even more because they're seeing the Silicon Valley. They've only read about it. They're seeing it in real life right now. After 3 hours of knowing them, we end up in a Thai restaurant. Okay, good things happen over Thai food.
Yeah, they do. I believe that. We say that in Louisiana with Cajun food.
Yeah, exactly.
But Thai food would be hitting.
And so I got my pad Thai, I got my pad CU. They are pitching for about 10 minutes the vision of Vive Church.
Yeah, Vive Church.
They're talking about this revelation that they had about technology that's transforming the world being created in this area. Facebook, Google, Apple, products that are being used by billions of people across the world. What if those people inventing and innovating those products can come to a life-giving church, meet Jesus, find a deeper purpose and meaning for their life? What if the Silicon Valley wasn't just known for technology? What if it was known for Jesus?
That's great. That's great.
So as I was eating my pad Thai, I'm captivated
you're like, this is it.
at this point. And literally after that vision pitch, they'd known us for 3 hours. This is a bold ask right here. Pastor Adam looks me in the eye, says, start it with us.
Yeah, Vance and his wife Kim, they're pretty much co-founders of Vive Church. They were the very first two people that we essentially met, and it just so happened that the first couple that we met also said that they're going to join us in building the church. We started 10 years ago now. We're a decade in, and 2012 we moved here from Newcastle, Australia. My uncle happened to be in San Francisco, and he put out a tweet on Twitter which said, in beautiful San Francisco, would love to see a church planted here one day. I read that. I thought, man, that's hilarious. Like, in America? It's the country of churches. And then I began to research about the Bay Area, and I began to read how unchurched the Bay Area actually was. And I said to Kira, my wife, I said, imagine if we had the guts to move country to start a church. We both kind of laughed about it, but then that laughter went to silence, and I knew she was thinking about it as well. Long story short, we said, let's try it. Let's go for it. We made the move over here. We sold everything. No one would fund us. No one thought that that was missions work, being a missionary to America, because America sent all the missionaries. So we went old school missions. We sold everything we had and we moved here in January 2012 to start the church in the Bay Area. Pretty much because I saw how unchurched it was, and I learned that this is the Silicon Valley. I knew nothing about the Silicon Valley prior. I knew that it was just a place of technology. I didn't know this was where Apple was, Google was, Facebook, and really realized that this is actually the center of the world. You know, I was reading at the time too how Paul desired to go to Rome. That's what he would say, I long to go to Rome. And because really the reason he wanted to go to Rome was because Rome was the center of the world. If he could influence Rome, he could inadvertently influence the world. At the same time, I was thinking, man, if we could influence the Silicon Valley, where technology comes out of and where really everything that is produced, that is used around the world comes from, there's a good chance that influencing that region would influence the world. So we said, let's try it. Let's go for it. Essentially, you can walk out into our lobby and you're going to see an art installation. That art installation is what we call our 50-year vision letter. It's pretty much all the spheres that we feel the church are called to and meant to influence. It's everything from technology to fashion to music. It really lists and collects all the areas that we feel the church, Vive Church, is going to infiltrate as the church should. I feel like the church throughout history has been the pioneer of culture. The church has dictated art and has determined so much of language and communication and culture that we see today. However, I feel like the world has taken over and hijacked that to the point where often we see the church following the world. And I feel like our vision is to redeem that back to the church being the leader of culture and society.
So here we are at Stanford campus.
On campus, the birthplace.
Really, of the Silicon Valley.
Yep.
It's really incredible. This is kind of a land of possibility.
Yeah.
Here, a land of optimism.
Yep.
What's so cool is the kingdom principles. I feel like we've been
Sure.
able to identify
Sure.
in a place like Stanford, in the Silicon Valley.
Yep.
Things like they take risk. We call it faith.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, I don't know if people would connect the Silicon Valley to Stanford naturally.
Right.
But, I think what this place produces in the mentality and the philosophy of that, let's just take some risk. Let's
Yeah.
try stuff. Backed with obviously Sand Hill Road,
Yeah.
which is right next door. That's the venture capital road. That's where people get funded. Some of the most well-known companies in the world
Yeah.
get funded. I think that collaboration of risk,
Yes.
philanthropy, everything that goes into it, but more than anything, I think it's that environment.
Yeah.
Optimism.
That's really interesting because I think when people think about the Silicon Valley, immediately they think Facebook, Google, Apple.
Right.
But they don't know the origin stories of where those people, those founders went to school.
Right. Exactly.
Who they met with to fund them.
Yep.
And then who they connected with to build teams to actually build these products that are now world changing.
And I think I agree with that. It's funny because the term Silicon Valley, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people.
Right.
Because where is it?
Yeah, that's right.
Like, where can you point to it on a map? It's not actually a destination. I think
No.
it's really famous, but it's not a destination that you can go to and go, oh, I was in the Silicon Valley,
That's right.
because it's a philosophy.
It's a philosophy, it's a way of life.
Yep.
We were even talking about this earlier where it's not a destination.
Nope.
There's not a lot to do in
No.
this area.
Which I think enhances the atmosphere.
Yeah.
You go to a lot of places. There's beautiful places you can go to.
Yeah.
You can go to destination places,
Miami.
cities. Miami, my goodness. But there's so much to do there.
Yeah.
Here, there's really little to do. You're
Right.
going to be hard pressed finding a great restaurant compared to some even more unknown places in
Yeah.
the world, which I actually think lends towards the ethos
Yeah.
that is here in this place.
Yeah.
That we're not finishing work and then going and enjoying life.
Right.
People here finish work and then they go to work
Yeah.
on their product, their
Yes.
idea, their startup.
I'm convinced that the side hustle was invented here.
100% has to be, because there was little to do and so
Yeah.
much competition
Yeah.
that if you aren't hustling,
Right.
what are you doing?
Right.
What are you wasting your time on?
That's
you
right.
enjoying life early?
Yeah.
Or are you going to actually invest your life to enjoy it later?
Yeah, it's interesting because the work culture is so strong here.
Yeah.
It's not, hey, what are we doing after work? Is what are
Right.
we going to work on now?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I think that's that mentality, right? And I mean, it's probably started here. The expectation,
Yep.
if you're in what would we call this? I don't even think we call this an Ivy League school.
No, actually, that's something that people have talked about for
Right.
a while, where East Coast,
Yep.
that prestige,
Yep.
Harvard, Yale, that is a quintessential
They're the Ivy League schools.
Right? I think people have tried to rebrand Stanford as the Ivy League of the West.
Sure.
I don't even think that Stanford is vying for that.
No.
Right? I think they're trying to create something new.
Sure.
Something innovative.
But I think there is still that expectation, right?
Oh, yeah.
That pressure. This is a prestigious school.
That's right.
And you got to work hard.
Yeah.
And I think just to make it here, what do they call it? Duck syndrome. You're gliding on the surface, but you are literally pedaling a million miles under the surface.
Yeah.
I think that carries into life.
Totally.
Whether they're working at Google, Apple, whatever. That's great, but I'm also hustling to make a living and to make it in the industry.
You pastor a lot of people from Stanford. We get to serve this community with duck syndrome, with that work culture here in the Silicon Valley. What have we learned, like, in pastoring the type of people that live here?
I don't think hustle's bad.
Right.
I don't think it's like, let's deter the hustle or the drive, but are you getting meaning from that, or are you doing it for a purpose?
Wow.
What's the goal? What's the purpose? Is it just to get my significance from that, and I made it in that area, or I made something valuable or viable?
Yeah.
Or have I got purpose behind what I'm building that is going to change an industry?
Yes.
I would highly encourage that kind of hustle. Let's grind to build products that are going to shift things for people's lives, or build something for the kingdom. And if we can connect the purpose, I think that's my job.
Yeah.
Is let's put purpose to it.
Yes. We haven't dampered ambition.
No.
We've just directed it.
100%. 100%. Yeah, I mean, you got to direct it, right? Because I think it can get hopeless otherwise.
Yeah.
People get very lost after putting years into something and going, what am I doing this for? I think the question of why, that's the purpose of the church, is to keep orienting people. Not everyone's going to work full-time in the church.
Exactly.
But that doesn't mean you're not in full-time ministry.
Right.
But if I can put some ministry behind what you're doing and make it purposeful, then it's going to be powerful.
I think it's been really interesting to see how people have started to flock to Vive because of the vision.
Yes.
Like you said, they have all this ambition, they have all this experience, they're working on some of the most innovative products. They need somewhere to house that. They need somewhere to direct that and align that.
100%. That's the challenge, I think, of every pastor in a modern world, is to make sure that your congregants, your people, aren't getting vision from their workplace.
Right.
And then meeting a smaller vision at the church.
Yeah.
That they're not in their work, what they're working on day to day isn't so inspiring and world changing that when they come to the church, your vision is let's put another kids room on.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with putting a kids room on, but
that's right.
What's the vision you're presenting that the church is going to change the world that is even more inspiring than what they're working on day to day?
So good.
Yeah, well, thank God for Pastor Adam. His wife's name's Kira.
Kira.
Thank God for them that had that vision. And, we get to be a little bit of a beehive for that here.
Yeah.
You're constantly hearing the vision. You're hearing couples that want to go change a city, that want to move to a place, that want to fall in love with people, want to find a couple, that they want to find their Vance and Kim.
Wow.
That first couple, that can believe in them, that could probably say a yes.
Yes.
That and that's happened. So you've been in that church. You've served as a elder trustee, one of the launch team, beginning guys, key leader.
All of the
one
above.
of those words.
All of the above.
Yeah, when you're planting everybody. Are you breathing? Okay, you're a leader. Are
Truck driver, bump in, bump out.
100%, yeah. So you've done all that.
Done all of it.
Yeah, and did it just celebrates 10 years?
This past Sunday, we celebrated our 10th birthday.
That's a big deal. And I got to meet them at one of our art conferences.
That's right.
Incredible couple, great leaders.
Yes.
You tell generous.
The best.
Care about the kingdom of God. So you're pastored well, and you're in a good space. You're in a great church, and you've helped design and be a part of it. Which for now you and your big family, to be a part of that church.
That's right.
What was the one thing when you look over 10 years?
Yep.
What's the one character trait you'd say about Pastor Adam?
Vision.
He's a vision guy. Him and his wife.
So one thing that has propelled us forward constantly and consistently is that Pastor Adam's vision for our church always outpaces our resources.
Okay.
And that's the faith gap.
You hear that?
That's the faith gap.
So he's believing God, multiple locations, multiple cities.
Every week,
reach
every
the world,
month, every year.
Let's touch generations.
That's it.
Let's get another location. Let's spread. Let's use technology. Let's build leaders. Let's disciple. So he's in that vision phase. But obviously, since he started from zero, you've seen it in those different seasons and phases of that get to 10 years.
That's it.
Where you said something earlier, it's vibe.
Yes.
What'd y'all call it at the beginning?
Well, the year
or how
one,
was it the first
the year
year?
one vision was survive. And we were like, after we accomplished that, we'll drop the serve.
So everybody watching
It'll
right
just
now
be
just
vibe.
felt a relief. They're like, oh my gosh, that's us. That's our life story. We're in year 3 and we're surviving. We've been through COVID. We're trying to survive it. And, so it's an incredible story. So in that, at Google, church growing, God gives you an idea. You see a need.
Yes.
And a lot of times, I think it's John Maxwell that talks about the little boy with the loaves and fish. And he said, there was a great miracle that took place, but it all started with this need.
Yes.
There was a need that needed a miracle.
Yes.
There was something that needed to be fixed.
Ooh.
And so this supernatural power, of course, Jesus being there at the table, serving it to everybody, that changes everything. But it's the need that created the supernatural. And so you've seen some of that in generosity and giving, and so unpack where Overflow came from out of that journey of again, it came about. It came about.
It's so interesting that you focused on that word need, right? Because I think a lot of times as church planners, as innovators, we focus on the solution.
Sure.
We focus on the services. Our services and our solutions are trying to chase problems. But actually, if you follow the problem and the pain
that's the truth.
first, as a byproduct of understanding the problem deeply, you'll have the best solution. And so what we found in 2019, specifically, Pastor Dino, at our church, in our community, is that we have a lot of technology people in our church based on the region that we're in. Google employees, Facebook employees come to our church. And in 2019, I just heard a flurry of them come to me. I sit in the seat of executive pastor at our church.
Wow.
So they would come to me and say, hey, Vance, I would...
Well, just another thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Just another thing to do. So they would say, hey, Vance, would love to give generously to everything that the church is doing. We do a lot of outreach programs, partner with nonprofits. And the only way that I can give big, though, Vance, is through my stock portfolio.
Okay.
Because they get paid in stock options and things like that from their companies. And at the time, I didn't know how to receive it. I looked into it.
Track down a broker, track down somebody, and try to figure something out. Okay.
When I looked into it, that's what it was.
Yeah.
That I actually started a Fidelity brokerage account. I gave them the information. And then they would send this information to their broker at Charles Schwab, for example.
Sure.
And then their broker would tell them, okay, download this form, fill it out, and then fax it in.
Yeah.
So then I realized, oh my gosh, there's so much friction.
Yeah.
And there's so much inconvenience.
Steps.
So many steps. And these people actually want to give generously.
Yeah.
And so when I started realizing, even if I created a brokerage account, but it's still not allowing me to facilitate this gift, why? Because of friction. That's what I realized.
Yeah.
I realized that millennials, actually any generation, are not going to fax in a form. That's just not going to happen. Literally.
Yeah.
And we live in an Amazon generation. We live in a Venmo generation.
100%.
This is the environment we live in. And I literally felt the Spirit of God tell me, if you remove this friction, it will unlock unprecedented amounts of generosity.
Wow. Yeah.
Talking about the loaves and the fish, multiplication.
Yeah.
God is not a God of addition. He's a God of multiplication.
That's right.
And that's the spirit that I got. And so in October 2019, I partnered with an engineer and we created the first version of Overflow. And it was just primarily for our church, to serve a need at our church.
Yeah.
And so we created it November 8th, 2019. I sent an email to 1,000 active recurring donors. I said, hey, a lot of you have been asking me how you can give stock donations, even crypto donations. We built a product We built a product called Overflow. We want to help you. You can now give through this platform. I thought, a few people were going to respond. It was going to get a few $1,000 from that. In 3 days after sending that email, 32 people responded, and we raised $1.1 million in stock donations alone.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it was to God be the glory. And when I saw that, it was a sample set of one. It was one example. But when I saw that, Pastor Dino, I really felt that this cannot be just restricted to our church.
Right, yeah.
This
gotta be shared.
needs to be shared
it's got
with
to.
the wider kingdom. And that's what we've been on mission for.
Yeah, I
since
mean, you
then.
think about, I remember when I pastored for 20 years in
Yeah.
Louisiana. We launched a church in 92, 93. I can remember when the beginning convos of online giving.
Yes.
I remember when everything was a check, cash in the bucket, and the people's generosity came that way.
Yep.
As they were being obedient in the tithe, consistent to God with their offerings. Man, just thank God for people that love God, put God first
Yeah.
in their finances. And I remember the security, like, oh gosh, it's on a computer.
Yes.
You know, but the world was coming along.
Sure.
We were ordering things that way. And then all of a sudden, there was like this huge shift.
Huge shift.
In a matter of like 24 months for us. I think other places were quicker. We were in
Yeah.
Louisiana. And it just all of a sudden went from 5 to 10,
Exactly.
15% to 50% like
Yes.
in a year. And then text to give.
Yeah.
I remember when that came out, everybody's like, man, you mean, you know. So, you know, I think God helps give this innovation.
Yeah.
I believe for the furtherance of the Great Commission.
It really is.
I mean, for the kingdom of God.
It really is.
And God gave you an idea. God
That's
gave
right.
you a zero. You brought it to one, and
Yeah.
a whole lot further.
Yeah,
And-
the message is the same, right? Generosity, the principle of it hasn't changed for thousands of years.
Yeah, that's true.
Biblical generosity, while the message doesn't change, the method has to change.
Oh, 100%.
The way we facilitate generosity is going to evolve over time.
Yeah, yeah. So the last couple of years leading this now, you're the CEO and the founder, and you know you got a lot of people involved, and a lot of great churches are using it. What's it been like to watch it?
It's been the greatest privilege of my life. It's
Yeah.
been one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm speaking to every church planner here. Taking anything from 0 to 1
Yeah.
is not for the
We're
faint-hearted.
gonna call this show 0 to 1.
Let's go.
Come on. You coined the phrase.
Yeah. So it's been painful at times, but the greatest privilege.
Yeah.
The greatest privilege. It's been worth the work.
Yeah, it's a
And
good phrase.
so-
Worth the work.
Worth the work. And so, you know, in the past 2 years now, Pastor Dino, we're serving nearly 400 churches
That much
and
in 3 years.
nonprofits in under 3 years.
Because it's nonprofits too.
Nonprofits
right,
as
that's
well.
right, that's right.
We're talking
That's important.
Meals on Wheels, Golden State
yeah,
Warriors
yeah, that's
Foundation.
It's
Don't
important.
hate me, Golden State Warriors still
Yeah,
on
yeah,
top.
yeah. Yeah.
But we serve even corporations. So even companies have come on board, getting this revelation of generosity, wanting to inspire their employees to give
Sure.
towards these nonprofit organizations. And so we serve churches that people would be familiar with, like Elevation Church and Life Church, but many ARC church plants
Yeah.
as well. So
Even in that early stage.
even in the early
In
stage.
the early, I talked to a guy the other day. I called him. We were talking about. I'm going over there to do a couple services for him, and we were talking about giving. I asked him about, hey, have you heard? And he's like, man, we're on it.
Oh,
we're on the
good.
Overflow. We're a part. I was like, what? And he says, you know, we joined maybe 3-4 months ago.
Oh, awesome.
He said we've already got people dialing in. We've already
Come
got
on.
people giving. It's been worth the work for
so
their
good.
church. You make it easy for them. And I can remember, you know, we when we pastored in Louisiana, we had a lot of guys working for Exxon and Dow and Shell Company.
Yeah.
And they would call me to want to give
Yeah.
through stocks. And I'd be like, you know, God, you know, like it was, you know, we were trying to cure the common cold. I mean, it was like, what are we doing? You know, get everybody in here. You know, it's an alert. And it would be, you know, our financial guys ringing and saying, we're calling his broker. This guy's calling me. Have you made the trade? Have you made the trade? And, you know, like, don't lose a dime. Don't lose a dime of the money. You know, we were so desperate. Literally, I can remember a day like that where it was like a guy gave, I can remember his name. He was a good man. And he gave a very generous gift to our church. And I remember, you know, I was emotional because it was a key gift at a key time. And I remember, you know, I was in there like, do we have it yet? Do we have it yet? Is it in the bank?
Exactly.
You know, I was panicking. And, you know, it's like 3 weeks later, it's like, it has arrived. And we were like, oh my God,
Jesus
the
is
queen
alive.
is here.
Yeah,
It's like,
the queen is here.
I mean, it was just like, the triumphant entry, palms, Hosanna. But because in that moment, as a planter, a pastor,
It's everything.
those are big deals.
That's a big
That
deal.
is a big deal because what you said about, Pastor Adam, more vision than resource.
Yes.
You're dreaming.
That's
you're
it.
believing.
That's it.
You see a community you want to give out food to. You see a campus that you want to go do college outreach. You want to get more technology for the kids. We want to sow into scriptural engagement.
That's it.
You have these things in your heart that God gives
Wow.
you, and you're believing God for resources. So something like that hits, and then there's obstacles.
Yep.
There's challenges.
Yep.
And then also when you find a resource that says, hey, when God moved on these people's hearts to do this, we're now going to help that be expedited.
Exactly.
And I think that, for me,
It's huge.
I think that's at the core of what you're doing.
It's the core. We say this, we're the platform that your donors want. A lot of times we evaluate platforms for what our back office needs are.
Sure, yeah.
And that's important. But you want a platform that honors your kingdom builders, that honors your legacy
Yeah,
givers,
yeah,
that
100%.
honors your... So, I was talking to somebody that leads a legacy ministry a few weeks ago, and he said that they had gotten a stock gift in their church before. Unfortunately, because of the way that stock gift was received, they didn't know who gave the stock gift.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until a few months later that donor reached out to the finance team
gosh.
saying, hey, I gave this stock gift, it left my account, nobody recognized
I
me.
know, man. It's just the
And
pain of a pastor.
yeah, and that wasn't the heart of the church of the pastor, but
No,
because
no.
the technology didn't exist to be able to identify who it was, they didn't know who to
True.
thank. And when you don't know who to thank, it's not just you got that one gift, but you want to make sure that
Yeah.
that donor feels valued.
Yeah,
So
it can
it's
feel transactional.
it's a transaction, it's an
Yeah,
invoice, not a
yeah,
celebration
yeah,
like
yeah,
it should be.
No, but that's not Jesus. Not at all. So what would you say to a young leader, young planter, young guy that's that's got a dream,
Yeah.
that's trying to, I got a dream in my heart. I want to start a company. I want to.
Oh, come on.
I've got some innovation.
Yeah.
I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I'm doing 2 jobs at once right now. I'm working,
Yeah, hustling.
washing cars,
Grinding.
but I've got this idea. What do you tell young leaders now about what you've seen in innovation?
Yeah.
What you've seen. How do you do it now?
Yeah, I would say, my advice to young entrepreneurs, young leaders that have an idea in their heart, understand what season you're in. There's a season of learning and there's a season of earning. In my 20s,
Wow.
I knew I wasn't in the season of earning, so I didn't prioritize my focus on money. I prioritized my focus on serving and learning, aligning myself.
You did all this.
Yeah.
You're preaching from your journey.
That's it. That's it. And that's what's working my life is understanding that season and doing that season to the best of my ability.
Sure.
That season was just a setup for what God had for me. I didn't know exactly what God had for me or what it would look like. I just knew, I recognized I was in a season where I needed to come under. I need to align myself with great leadership to learn as much as I could in my 20s so that I was set up in my 30s to be able to, it's kind of like you're stretching and you're serving for the eventual launch. I don't know when that
Yeah.
launches one day. I don't
Yeah,
know when
yeah.
that slingshot's gonna hit.
Yeah.
But you just serve and you
Yeah.
learn for that season. And then the switching point of when God is really calling you to launch out or to start that idea is when you can't not start that idea.
Sure.
The burden is so heavy, right? Your capacity of pain can handle
Yeah.
it to where you're ready. And I would say that timing is really important.
Yeah, it is.
Timing is really important. And it doesn't have to happen in your 30s. It can happen in your 40s. It can happen in your 20s. I don't know. But it's contextual to you and your idea.
Yeah.
But you have to understand the season.
Yeah, Rick Warren used to talk about how that you can't make the waves. God sends the waves.
Exactly.
You have to be ready to ride them. And sometimes we're trying to make waves.
Exactly.
And so You just got to get yourself in position. And get ready that when the wave comes, what you said, you can make that what'd you call it?
That switch. That transition.
So where you can get up, ride the wave, and move on. But the one thing I would say that you did, or God through his, the steps of the righteous are ordered by the Lord.
Wow.
So Sanford, Google, Pastor Adam, on and on. That was, you did well in your incubator. And a lot of people,
that's a word.
They don't want to be in the incubator. They want to go full on in the field. Let's go.
That's a word.
And it seems like you were there learning from others, watching. Hey, we learned from some people's failures.
Yeah.
Hey, cautionary tales or good tales to kind of figure out, hey, that
Very
person.
good tales.
And you probably saw some of that. And I bet you've seen it in Silicon Valley.
I actually don't think that you can learn apart from failure.
Yeah.
Your greatest lessons will be from failure.
Pain.
Your greatest insight will be from rejection.
Yeah. So what do you see in when you see technology? You see there's a lot of people scared about it right now.
Yeah.
A lot of things, man. How much are they in my business? Where's this thing going? What is it that they call it? The AI.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, artificial intelligence,
all this
machine
kind of stuff,
learning.
all the machine learning,
metaverse,
all this kind of metaverse,
cryptocurrency,
Web3. Old man's trying to sit up on this thing and not fall off of it. That's all I'm trying to do. What do you think about that? I mean, there's always the dark side and the good side.
Yeah.
So we see that in everything.
Two sides of a coin.
Yeah. There's the side that says, "Wow, technology's done a lot. Wow, technology's brought a lot of pain."
Yeah.
And it always boils down to the user and to the person.
Sure.
When you think about the future, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so I see a few things. I mean, one thing that we say at our church and our pastor has taught us is that where does fear exist, right? It exists in the unknown.
Yeah.
That's where fear exists, in the unknown. But so does faith.
Yeah.
And the Bible says you can choose.
Yeah.
You're going to choose fear, you're going to choose faith. That's the principle. But practically, what I'm seeing and how that's panning out is that a lot of times, especially in the faith world, we can actually vilify technology because of maybe how human beings have used technology or abused technology. The reality is that technology is neutral. It's amoral. Right? Maybe the people that are running these technology companies have an agenda, but the actual technology itself is amoral. It doesn't have a soul. Actually, social media has been vilified a lot. Social media is actually just a representation of our heart.
Yeah, that's so true.
Because that's what,
it's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And so I think whether it's a person, a situation, or even a technology, we can still apply biblical principles. I think every pastor that's listening to this would know it can be redeemed.
Yeah.
There is redemptive power for anything, including technology.
Right.
And so what I've seen with social networks, what I've seen with peer-to-peer interaction on the internet and where we're going with Web3 is there is this movement towards wanting to take technology and continue to use it for personal gain. I'll go one step further, for personal greed. At the end of the day, what Facebook is trying to do
that's a good word.
Is maximize the algorithm to produce more ad revenue. What Web3 and cryptocurrency is trying to do is maximize the economics for the user to become what? Get rich quick. So a lot of technology nowadays is starting to head in the direction of emphasizing our greed. How do we redeem that? How do we counteract that? Why don't we build a platform that's not about greed, but that's about giving?
Yeah. Well, that's what yours is.
That's what we're doing.
That's what Overflow and working with so many churches to figure these things out. That's so interesting. That is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Such a good combo.
Kind of change gears.
Yeah.
You over the last year, you become a great friend of ARC.
Yes.
And what have you seen? When you see church planters and you've been at meetings and you had all these conversations? I know God birthed ARC 22 years ago. Billy Hornsby, the founders, all those guys, and our wives and all these amazing church planters early on, and people giving and I love it. I eat, breathe, and drink think about church planting and planters, and I love the conversations. I was up last night late, driving back from Memphis, was with some church planters on the phone with two of them. I'm leaving them, I'm on with the phone, I'm burning 2 phones up trying to talk to somebody. But what have you enjoyed about being exposed to this church planting world beyond what you experienced?
Yeah, we've been part
with
of and have been exposed to different church planting movements for sure, and God is doing his work all across the globe.
Yes, he is.
One thing unique to ARC that I've been so blessed by, inspired by, and I'll bring it full circle right now, the autonomy.
Yeah.
The autonomy. I've never seen such an influential movement, such a fast-growing and exciting movement that is so empowering.
Wow.
There isn't this culture of, no, you can only do our thing.
Sure.
It is this embrace of all these different organizations and entities and backgrounds and diversity and region that are coming together. And ARC is saying, hey, this is where we provide value. This is our platform that we want to give freely, because our heart is to just see more church plants thrive and flourish.
Yep, exactly.
And y'all have stayed so true to that mission and vision since the very beginning, as you mentioned, and you've practically institutionalized it. You have a lead team that leaves ego at the door and comes together for the greater cause. I've never seen that heartbeat and that culture scaled to such an extent that ARC has. That's what has personally blessed me. I would say what leads to that is, and then I don't know where it started, you know this better than me, Pastor Dino, but what I feel, and I'll contextualize it in Silicon Valley terms, is that we have this term in the Silicon Valley called positive sum mentality. Okay, positive sum is in opposition to zero sum mentality. Zero sum mentality is, oh, because you got that, therefore, I'm not able to get it. Positive sum mentality is, no, the pie keeps growing.
Wow.
No, there's abundance.
God, that's good.
Oh, no, like just because you got that doesn't mean I can't get this. Actually, because you got that, that's inspiration to know that can actually happen for me too.
That's 100%.
And so that positive sum mentality.
We're going to take this, write all this down.
Come on, is so pervasive at ARC. There is such a celebration culture. There is not this pretense of, oh, because you're up there, I'm going to try to cut you down. No, I'm not going to cut you down. I'm going to celebrate and elevate where the Spirit is moving. And it's because of that, I believe this movement has been blessed, and it will continue to be blessed. And I'm learning. I'm taking notes every time I get to be around.
I wanted to ask you that question because I know that you analyze things well. We've been in conversations, and just your wording, your framework. I love some of the terminology that you're giving to, and again, it's Jesus. It's Jesus. Matthew 16:18. I will build my church.
That's it.
The gates of hell will not prevail against it. I mean, we're just trying to be a prevailing church, start prevailing churches, and so it's as old as our Savior, but. I love these new terms. I know you observe well. I've watched you observe well. And I've watched you give terminology to things and wording to things. I think that's where Overflow came from. I think that's where helping Adam and them plant a church. Hey, let's come alongside of ARC or Grow or all these great churches. Let's see how we could build the dream. So, man, we've enjoyed being around you.
Oh, such
an
honor.
I think I love the partnership.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have some good Italian food tonight.
Oh yeah.
So we're going out to dinner tonight.
Come on.
I'm gonna take you to the best spot in Birmingham.
Let's go.
It's not Thai food, but so when I'm
it's still noodles. It's still some pasta.
There's some noodles. When I come see you, I expect some
we're
good
doing
Thai food. We're going Thai food.
We're gonna go to the spot. We'll bring Pastor Adam and Karen. We'll go to the spot where they asked us to be part of the church.
That'll be a lot of fun. We normally have a lot of fun around eating. That's been the history of ARC and being together. Our meals are definitely unscripted.
Oh, that's fantastic. I've seen it. I've experienced it.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Unscripted. I want to take a moment and thank all the generous partners who help make Unscripted possible. Now, for over 80 years, the Wesleyan Investment Foundation has been helping churches and church planters with their borrowing and investment needs, and they are incredible. I know all those guys, integrity. But if you're dreaming about a new project for your ministry or how to invest your resources already, then you check out WIF. They can help you so many different ways. So check out their website. They're an impactful, trusted organization at WIF Online. We also want to take a moment to thank Joyce Meyer Ministries. Oh my goodness, Joyce Myers, her family, David Myers, a dear friend. Boy, they have an incredible organization. And you talk about a group that does eternal impact with missions dollars. It's Joyce Meyer Ministries. Their mission arm is Hand of Hope. They've got a couple goals. One is to alleviate human suffering. Ultimately, it's to get the gospel out to as many people possible. They have projects all around the world. They're feeding programs, refugee relief, anti-human trafficking, which is huge, disaster relief, getting out resources to pastors and churches around the world, growing churches, serving churches. I love them. Integrity, amazing, amazing. We have all this in our ARC studio because of Joyce Meyer Ministry. That's how much they love people, love the gospel, and love spreading the gospel. So check out joycemeyer.org and you can find out more about what's happening with them. And hey, don't forget, if you're not a part of ARC, we want to invite you to learn more. Whether you're an existing church, looking for relationship, or to be a sending church, that is so important in the world right now, and you want to just have impactful missions to be a part of, then we want to be a part of that. Or you're a potential church planter. We'd love to meet you. Come do life with our leaders and our pastors, all those that have planted churches. So check out our website, arcchurches.com, to connect with us. Let's connect. Come on, somebody.